The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it, Thursdays here at Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We have Bobby in the Pride of Lincoln East. He is shadowing us, so behavior is a must today. 489-1240, 489-1240, the numbers to get in.
Are you talking about him or us in terms of behavior?
I'm saying us, not him. I know he's wearing a Packers camo hoodie, but he's a nice young man.
As opposed to us?
Yeah, as opposed to us, the dirty old guy and the young guy with the mustache.
We're both turned into grumpy old bastards.
A little bit. We're like the two old Muppets in the balcony is where we're at. But can email the show, Chris at HailVarsity.com, Elijah at HurrdatSports.com. And as always, watch the show on YouTube. The Hail Varsity YouTube channel is where you can watch and comment in the StreamYard, Facebook, and Twitter, and give the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter handle a follow. Can watch and rewatch the show that way. We'll check in with Brandon Vogel from Counter Read. Vogues has a really good preview up on Counter Read on Nebraska-Wisconsin. So we'll get there with Vogues. We'll dive in on Harbaugh blinking as he has accepted suspension and punishment. And in hour two, Gary Barnett will get us set for the weekend of college football. Thoughts on Nebraska-Wisconsin, the quarterback situation. And, Danny Burke, our favorite gambling expert, Danny Burke, will join us. Dion is in first. We'll continue to do roll call. We talked about morale. We've talked about square peg, round hole. And we'll hear from Matt Rhule just on the quarterback spot. So let's dive into this and the quarterback situation. So we'll hear from Rhule with the comment on the quarterback in just a hot minute. But with the quarterback room being a mess because of injury and ineffectiveness, what do you do? And it sounds like, Elijah, that Haarberg, if he feels okay, is going to be the guy that gives it a go. And do you like that option if it is Haarberg versus a Chubba Pretty discussion? And listen, if we're talking sports hernia, if we're talking groin issue, he was in for one drive and looked fine. What's Chubba look like after halftime, after a couple of hits? What's he look like in the fourth quarter? None of it's known. We have no clue. But as a feel right now, can Haarberg be the best option to win? And listen, I don't think you've got a great option as, okay, this is the guy that's going to be the difference maker for Nebraska football. So many times in football, it's your quarterback, it's your quarterback's decision-making, it's your quarterback's ability, it's matchup against the secondary, or in Haarberg's case, it's running the football. So wonderful. But if he's not 100%, does he give you the best option? He gives you the best option as a runner. And Nebraska's going to go all in on just running the football and being safe with their passing, then so be it. But right now, man, and I'm not the head coach, but I'd lean Pretty. And if he can't continue or can't finish, then I go to Haarberg to see if he can, maintain a lead or help keep a lead. I just don't think he's been playing that great. I would like to have seen Haarberg as a guy that has gone a different direction from an ascending standpoint. How's he trending? And he's just kind of trended. He's been trending the wrong direction. Teams have figured him out. He's not been as effective, and he's taken some hits. So to his credit, he's played probably banged up. And I'm not doubting his effort at all, but I think it's clear that the effectiveness has a lot to be desired for anybody at quarterback right now for Nebraska, except for Chubba. And Chubba's just had, 11 plays? Something like that.
And how much do we actually believe Matt Rhule whenever he says, like, Harburg's going to give it a go and he's a game-time decision?
This is probably gamesmanship.
There's no reason for Matt Rhule to get up in front of the media and say, yeah, Harburg's not a go this weekend. You want Wisconsin to have to prepare not just for 2 quarterbacks, but for 3.
Sure.
Prepare for Sims. Prepare for what you've seen from Purdy, the little you've seen from him this year. Prepare for Harburg. You want to make Wisconsin's defensive head spin. And like, I think back to about 2 months ago, whenever Sims himself went down with the ankle injury following Colorado. What did we hear the week after that? He's day-to-day. We'll see if we can give him a go.
We're not going to rush him back.
Not going to rush him back. He's not going to lose his job due to injury. Well, he kind of did. I mean, it was also due to poor performance, but...
Well, probably poor performance in practice.
But then Harburg comes in and plays really well against Northern Illinois. The next week, it's the same story. Well, Sims still day-to-day. We're not going to rush him back. We're going to wait and see. He's going to try to give it a go later this week. It's kind of the same song and dance from Matt Rhule that we heard regarding Sims that we're now hearing with Harburg. And that's what makes me think I don't think there's any chance in hell he goes on Saturday. He's probably going to travel. He'll probably suit up. And I mean, kind of like Sims against Louisiana Tech where he went in for his 1 play or whatever. Maybe a break in case of emergency situation for Heinrich Harburg. But I don't seriously believe, based on what he's shown you over the past 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks if you add the Purdue game in there too, that wasn't his best performance. Combined with the injury, I don't think it makes sense to start Heinrich Harburg on Saturday. I really don't think it does. I don't think you want to risk a guy like that. Matt Rhule talks about the career being more important than any individual win, as important as the wins are. You want to protect a guy for his career. And if all those things are true, I think what we're hearing from Matt Rhule getting up there at the presser and saying he's going to try to give it a go tomorrow and he's going to be a game-time decision on Saturday.
Prepare for the quarterback option, Wisconsin.
I think that's exactly what it is. It's, hey, Luke Fickle, you're listening on this. Yeah, we're going to see if Heinrich Harburg can give it a go, but I think that's just absolute gamesmanship and making Wisconsin prepare for a guy that they're probably not going to see.
Now, I would take a one-legged Harburg over a healthy Sims.
You're not wrong.
I'm not. Let's hear from Coach Rhule on the quarterback situation, cut 1.
Un momento.
Mm-hmm.
I sent you the picture. I forgot to pull these up.
That's fine. So we're going to hear from Matt Rhule in just a little bit as soon as the computer loads.
I've got it ready to go.
Okay, here is Matt Rhule today.
Yeah, Heinrich's going to practice tomorrow. He's obviously been out there on a limited basis. Chubb and Jeff have gotten most of the reps. But I know he definitely wants to play. He's pushing to come back and play, and so we'll see how he does tomorrow and get him to the game, warm him up. He'll definitely be available in some capacity, but whether he starts or not, I think it'll just it depends on how he feels at game day. We obviously wouldn't want to put him out there if we weren't able to run him and run the option and do the things that he does best. And so he'll test at full speed again tomorrow and see if he has the same good results.
Well, good on him. Trying to get back, help the team. He has helped spark some wins, but there's clearly, as he was talking about in front of the Maryland game, there's some clutter with him, and the game's moving a bit too fast right now. What about the other quarterbacks? More from Matt Rhule.
I think Jeff and Chubb have done a really nice job this week. Obviously, anytime you have the things that transpired last week, I think everyone comes in determined, knowing that they can fix some of those things. And I think we fixed a lot of things as a staff, as players. They're both with a chance knowing, like, hey, I get all the reps. They've been able to get a lot of reps, and they've done a really nice job. And so, we're prepared to play either one or both.
Let me ask you this, and you hear coaches say it, you've heard different Nebraska coaches say it, when we talk about the topic of fixing. Well, do you believe it? Can the quarterback, whoever it is, remarkably change what that position has been this year? And listen, I don't look at Rhule as a guy who picks and chooses what he pays attention to. He pays attention to all of it. He knows what's going on with special teams. He knows what's going on with defense. He knows what's going on with offense. And his job, as well as to hire the right guys and recruit the right guys, is to motivate. And he's also been tremendous at instilling communication and belief, right? He's done the old Ted Lasso and slapped the sign and put believe up there, and he has that. They've just not performed. And part of that is they're limited and they've got limited experience. I pray that you're not going to see the same quarterback play if it's Chubba or if it is Harburg Saturday than you've seen the last few games with turnovers and decision making. I mean, the Levy had to break at some point with throwing to a spot or with a confidence or just ball security. You've survived it, and you probably talked about it, but now it's cost you 2 ball games, and you're up against it for bowl eligibility. You absolutely addressed it again, and I think you can get better quarterback play. You can see guys change and get better. I do believe that. I mean, there's no ceiling here that's been lowered down, with the exception of maybe a confidence issue, and that's totally up to the player. I think Haarberg can be a better quarterback. Is he a guy that I think is going to beat out other options? No, not at this point. With Chubb and his injury, he came in cold with limited reps, but you saw the arm talent. And the decision-making, for the most part, was pretty good until those final 2 of the 3 plays. So Nebraska, I'm sure, has drilled down on decision-making. I'm sure they've drilled down on situation. And I'm sure they've drilled down on just time and place, right? Situation of 3 versus 7, just take points, trust the defense. And that's not cowardly. That is just smart football. And I think they've really, if he talks about the assistant coaches there, he's been everywhere this week with Rhule. I would bet money that he has been hands-on everywhere, and they've really self-assessed, they've self-scouted, they've not overthought. They've looked in the mirror and said, this was awful. This was bad. This cost us a football game, and we're going to fix it. So maybe I'm too optimistic. Maybe I've had vodka in my water glass here, whatever the case may be. But I think you'll get better quarterback play Saturday.
The problem
you
is,
have to. The other take is, well, you can't get much worse quarterback play.
The problem is, Schmidt, is you brought up Ted Lasso and the belief. I think there's way too much goldfish mentality going on with the play calling. And Marcus Satterfield, he seems to forget what the issues have been that have plagued this offense. He looks at the film and he goes, well, maybe we shouldn't air the ball.
They're in this defense. We're going to let it rip.
He goes way too much. You got to remember what the issues with this offense have been and what's been working for you.
Your quarterback has had trouble with the reads. Maybe we hand it off. No, we're going to throw the football.
3rd and 7 field goal range. Let's make that third
run. They're expecting the run on 3rd and 7.
That's the battle I'm fighting between this week whenever I'm looking at the Wisconsin game is, can they learn from their mistakes? Sure. I mean, you have a new quarterback that could potentially show you
something. One side of the football has all year. Defense.
One side of the football has. And that's what you look at the offense and you say they don't seem to have learned from their mistakes. Jeff Sims goes out and makes the same mistakes, and Haarberg makes the same mistakes, and Sims gets a chance to ride the bench and learn from his mistakes, and he comes back out there, and within 3 plays he's making the same mistakes with ball security and throwing into triple coverage and getting locked in on one receiver. You haven't seen those guys progress the way you would hope under a developmental program like Matt Rhule has said he's trying to create.
And it's year 1 of the development, I mean, there's habits you're dealing with that you brought with you from Georgia Tech that have been hard to die. You have Haarberg who comes in and gets rolling, and then what's your adjustment off of what the defenses have done to stop you? Because the first 2 teams you played had no answer. Illinois really didn't have an answer with the option game. Okay, even though it was on film, and the first 2 P5 teams didn't have an answer with the quarterback run game. You saw Northwestern have a better answer. You saw Purdue and their linebackers have a better answer.
I mean, they figured out the answer is to go clobber Heiner Carberg
Let's see how many hits the quarterback can take, and let's see if we can knock this guy out so we can get Sims back on the field. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's probably what every defensive coordinator was saying during the week of practice. And maybe it's hyperbole, but no, I expect them to absolutely be sick and tired of it by this week, and it's gone on since the first week of October, right? You've had almost 6 weeks now of quarterback play and turnovers that have really hampered you. We'll get into a little bit into Haarberg, make that Harbaugh, and his presser that was earlier this week. Brian checks in, says Haarberg has regressed. Sims is a head case. I mean, it's a confidence thing. with Sims more than anything. Brian checks in and says, if Wisconsin runs a 3-3-5, our offense should have no problem. That's what they practice against, and that's probably part of it too, right? I mean, how much success has Nebraska's offense had Monday through Thursday against the Black Shirts? I wouldn't bet a lot.
I wouldn't either. But the thing about the 3-3-5 is that's nice in theory. They remember this from fall camp. They've played against it a lot. The 3-3-5 is so multiple that Nebraska's 3-3-5 looks a hell of a lot different than Wisconsin's 3-3-5. It's the same in theory. The same personnel's out there, but Wisconsin utilizes it a lot differently than Nebraska has, and that's kind of why Nebraska's rushing defense has been fantastic this year, and Wisconsin's hasn't been very great. Nebraska tends to go with those 4 down linemen, whereas Wisconsin really tends to stick with 3 down linemen and then a 4th undersized outside linebacker, as opposed to Nebraska's Jack, who's been more of a Prince Will or an MJ Sherman, a bigger type. So different, same in theory. Blocking assignments, I guess, are a little more similar than it would be against like a 4-3. But that's a nice thought in theory. I'm not convinced that that's how it's going to actually work in practice on Saturday.
We have a company challenge here when it comes to holiday door decorations, and we have absolutely sold out. Yeah, that's our decoration. We are going to fail this contest.
You can check out in the stream if you're listening on radio. You can see what we've created. It's terrible.
It's quite awful, but at least it's spelled right. Brandon Vogel's on the way with Counter Read.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
It's Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. We're going to get Vogues in the stream and on the horn here in just a minute. We'll see if he has the link. I assume he has the link.
He does. Maybe we'll have to get him on the horn.
But really good preview with Nebraska and Wisconsin, 489-1240. And give the show a follow on Twitter at HVarsity Radio. Can check things out that way. And also get involved in the stream, the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Now, there's a vocal majority of nobody in the stream, at least. Those of you that have made comments that want to see Sims go anywhere near the football on Saturday night. Pretty interesting from a motivational standpoint, just where Nebraska is in this series against Wisconsin. The fans have long, painful memories of Nebraska v. Wisconsin. They have long, painful memories of games in Wisconsin specifically. And this was asked to Rhule earlier when it comes to his decorating. And it's not even his decorating. I said signs. Well, there's all sorts of signs up around the facility. And there's been reminders of just how sideways it has gone. And it's up to this team, this Nebraska football team in 2023, to snap a 9-game losing streak to Madison.
I did not do that. I did not do that. That might have been a strength coach. Might have been an assistant coach. That might have been a player. You guys know me. That's not that has nothing to do with me. I don't play for trophies. I don't care what happened in 2013, 14, 15. I asked the guys how old they were in 2012. They were like, I was 12. I'm like, so does that have anything to do with us? So, yeah, I heard that, and I get blamed for everything. They all think I do everything. I don't even go in their locker room. I didn't put anything up. But again, I think it's pretty cool. I think it's probably one of the players, to be honest with you. I mean, you better ask Ty Robinson or Giff or one of those guys, or maybe it was Corey in the weight room. But yeah, that would never come from me. I didn't mean to interrupt your question.
You can ask why you would do that.
Yeah. No, I didn't do it. Yeah, I mean, I heard that and I was like, I didn't do that. I had no idea that was being done. But again, I don't micromanage the locker room. If they want to put that up, put it up. If someone wants to put it up, put it up. My thing is just very simply all the time, did winning a game or losing a game affect the next game? It really doesn't. So let's go play well, after the game this week, you guys are going to be talking to me about, the execution. Either, hey, we didn't turn the ball over, this happened. You'll be talking to me about the game, so I'm always focused on the game. But you know what? These guys, they, as I told them, they know how to do it. They went to Illinois, played a great night game on national TV, and they won the game. They went to Iowa last year on senior day and beat Iowa. These guys know what to do, and if that in some way locked them in a little bit more this week, to each their own.
Well, that is Matt Rhule. We have Brandon Vogel from Counterread, counterread.com. Vogues, do you have any signs up around your home that says beat Wisconsin?
No, I don't. The only motivational poster I have is on the back of my office door. It says, "Gentlemen, it is better to have died as a small boy than to fumble this football." John Heisman. I'm going to show you here. It's also on a crazy island sunset background, which is why I particularly love it, because it makes no sense.
Well, it looks like one of those memes that a 50-year-old mom would post up on Facebook.
Yes, that is the background photo. I'm sure it's a stock photo. I'm sure it has been used for that very purpose. But this one's about fumbles.
Well, do you have another one, or is one in the mail when it comes to throwing interceptions?
No, I haven't. I'm still looking for the perfect one there. But I should really get on it and get serious about it, because could have made a lot of money, I think, from just sales to Nebraska for use around the facilities this season.
Well, what do you think about Saturday, Brandon Vogel with this counter read?
I just found the quote though.
What?
Three things can happen when you throw the football.
Two of them are bad.
Two of them are bad. That's the perfect Nebraska quote.
Sure. I mean, that's a T-shirt for run the damn ball guy, right? You got run the damn ball on the front, and you have the quote on the back. Away we go.
With the sunset.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sun is setting on this season. The sun may be setting on a bowl opportunity, Vogues.
Hell of a transition there, Schmidt.
Thank you. How are you feeling about Saturday night? Going to be Big Ten West ugly? Or are you excited about two defenses flying around and beating the hell out of two offenses that really want to go inside the locker room?
Yeah, it does have the potential to. It may not be the most aesthetically pleasing game. Both sides here, pretty good defenses. I would call them wounded offenses. If there's an edge to be had in this game, I think it's probably Nebraska's, just based on context of these two programs recently. And it's not a big one. It's not something you can count on, but watched both coaches' press conferences on Monday, and it kind of struck me the differences in that Matt Rhule, is – I feel like Nebraska, even though there's some tension about it'd be really great to get to this bowl game, felt like there was probably about an 80% chance of that happening a couple of weeks ago, and chances are not that high now. They're still on a little bit of a free roll. This team was picked to finish fifth in the Big Ten West. It's not like they've exceeded expectations already, but expectations weren't as high as they were for Wisconsin, the preseason division favorite. So is that weight there? And it seemed like it was, with the kind of questions that Fickle was getting. I think, it's not that Wisconsin's season is a total loss. It's just, it's not quite what you'd expect from a hire as well regarded as Fickle was. There's also the whole offensive coordinator offense part of this. So speaking of run the damn ball guy, the Wisconsin version of that, I'm guessing it's having a bit of a minor meltdown this season, because Phil Longo has been as advertised, I guess, for better and worse when it comes to the Badger offense.
It's Brandon Vogel with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, looking ahead to Nebraska-Wisconsin. And Brandon, do you get the feel this week, like a lot of other people around Husker Nation, that Wisconsin is ready to roll over? There's been some talk this week in pressers about trying to keep their head in it. That came from Luke Fickell, that it's not physical with his football team right now, it's mental. But we were kind of saying the same things before Michigan State, but then they come out on senior day and probably play their performance of the season. Similar story, Wisconsin, it's senior night at Camp Randall on Saturday night, a place where Nebraska's really struggled to go win. Do you see the parallels between those two games, and how do you feel about this narrative that maybe Wisconsin's ready to roll over and move on to next year?
I think it's more it's more likely maybe with Wisconsin than it was with Michigan State. I had a feeling, I had the feeling going into that Michigan State game, it probably would have been better for Nebraska if the Spartans had picked up a win somewhere. It felt like one of those seasons where maybe they had one arrow left in the quiver, and who was going to get it, and it happened to be Nebraska, because they did not put up much of a fight against Ohio State. Granted, a big underdog, but there just wasn't a lot there. I think we'll find out. Like, I don't expect Michigan State to come out and beat Indiana this week. So that's kind of where they were at. Wisconsin's different, and I think it goes back to the context. Fickell also said on Monday, and credit to him for kind of the honesty, but he said this year one at Wisconsin has been much more difficult than going 4-8 in year one at Cincinnati, which surprised me a little bit. And, and he kind of said, he said, I don't know, maybe it's the expectations, which tells me that that's probably what he thinks it was. So you're dealing with that notion that, hey, maybe things have gone a little bit slower than we anticipated. And I think when you have that, there is a potential for, just kind of going into these last couple of games late in the season. You've been banged up, like Nebraska. You've had key injuries on offense. And sometimes teams don't look like they want to be there. So I'm not guaranteeing that's Wisconsin, but I can see why people think that potential is there.
Those are all interesting factors. And with Nebraska going into this thing, I expect those seniors for Wisconsin to have one more push in them. And, it's going to be a difficult ball game. Wisconsin, if their mind is right, and that's the big question here, is talented enough, and they're probably right there with Iowa. But you could just see the wind go out of them, right, after that Iowa game. And then all of a sudden they found life in that fourth quarter against Illinois. So the fact they've lost 3 in a row and had it handed to them. Okay, Ohio State, they played their butt off and it was tight going into the fourth quarter. But once they didn't get that, there's a very 2002 feel for me with this Wisconsin team where they're just not as talented. Of course, there wasn't coaching transition, but just they're good enough to hang against some of the big teams, and then teams that they've usually had a pretty good time with, especially in Madison, they got annihilated. And then they just absolutely took nothing with them to Indiana. So I just wonder if they're going to get the old backbone, sell out for the senior speech, and I think the emotion coupled with a potential early mistake or two by Nebraska could be what keeps him going for 4 quarters.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned 2002 because all offseason long, I kind of looked at Wisconsin from the outside and felt a little bit of deja vu for that Solich, Callahan, Peterson era. You fire a coach in Christ where okay, maybe things were sliding a little bit in the wrong direction, but he wasn't a bad coach. Different AD makes his football higher, and Fickell's, super well regarded. But then when he goes and gets Phil Longo, quote unquote, an air raid disciple, it kind of looks like a clear break from everything Wisconsin had been, for the 30 years prior to that. And it's too early to say yep, this is your Callahan era, Wisconsin, enjoy it. I'm not saying that, but it's very jarring to look at Wisconsin from a statistical perspective. They're averaging 40 pass attempts a game. Yet they rank 120 something. They're averaging fewer passing yards per attempt than Nebraska. We've watched that passing attack all season. They're throwing the ball a ton. Meanwhile, they have the second best rushing average on a per play basis in the Big Ten. They have the 12th best rushing success rate in the country. It must be frustrating if you're a classic Badger fan to be I get it. It's early. We're not throwing anything out the window yet, but boy, is this a departure when a lot of the numbers, from my view, would kind of suggest hey, just run the ball. And I know they've lost their top 2 running backs, but hey, talk to Nebraska about that.
Vogues, I want to keep you for 2 more minutes on the other side. Can we do that?
Yep.
All right, Brandon Vogel with us. Counter Read, counterread.com. Great preview from Vogues on Nebraska-Wisconsin. More with him as Hail Varsity continues.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity Radio. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. Brandon Vogel continues on with this reminder about buckling up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. This message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Brandon Vogel with Counter Read, counterread.com. Couple more minutes with him as we talk Nebraska-Wisconsin. Vogues, you touched on the fact that these teams, while they have the same record, they're both Big Reds. There's a lot of relation or crossover with the programs. They're absolutely two different teams. They're not the same, even though they come in with some struggles under first-year guys. And this is one of the juicier parts that was a story with Nebraska-Wisconsin before expansion happened. And it's going to be forgotten, but this is the last rodeo of the Big Ten West between Nebraska-Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's a big one. When Nebraska came into the conference, like, I know Iowa made sense as a natural rival, but like I remember I was more intrigued by Wisconsin. I was up there for that first Big Ten game of Nebraska's in 2011. I still love trips to Madison. I think it's an amazing football atmosphere. And to think that, coming up, there's going to be years where those two don't play. I do feel a little bit remorseful for that, because it's that rivalry, quote unquote, if we want to call it that, kind of started on a high note. Nebraska got smoked first time in Madison, but that was a top 10 matchup. Came back and got it back the following year, and then things did not go so well in the Big Ten title game rematch. But it felt like we were just getting started, and then the programs kind of went down separate paths. Both teams changed coaches almost as often. I think Nebraska had one more than Wisconsin did, but the Badgers kept winning, and Nebraska didn't. So too bad, but it makes this one kind of a fitting, I guess, not end point, but place for those paths to converge, because I think the big difference between them right now is just the tone around the programs, which is pretty fascinating.
Brandon, obviously, Saturday night's the main event for fans around here. Are you going to be watching Iowa, Illinois, holding your breath in that one? Should Husker fans be watching that one? Obviously, the implication being if Illinois gets the win and Nebraska gets the win, Black Friday is for the Big Ten West title. You think Husker fans should be holding their breath?
After all of this,
yeah,
it could end up that way.
I think definitely tune in and see how that one starts. Iowa blanking Rutgers last week certainly got my attention, and this thing's setting up a little bit too well for Iowa, I'm afraid. Like, after being the butt of the joke that their AD put them in all offseason, the interim AD kind of at least puts that in the rearview mirror by making the tough call with Brian Ferentz. And now they're in a position to just be like, yeah, whatever. Like, you guys can laugh about how few points we score. We're about to walk away with this West Division, doing it our way. And if that's the way this all unfolds, well, it wouldn't surprise me at this point, based on how good Iowa looked last week.
And that could be a fitting swan song for Kirk Ferentz. I'm not sure how long he is for Iowa City. We'll find out, but
he'll
it could
keep
be
going till he's not getting paid anymore.
There's a different tenor in Iowa City ever since Brian got announced that he's going to be.
Yeah, it's called happiness
from the fans, but not from Captain Kirk.
No, Captain Kirk's angry, but let's be honest. I mean, the kid was probably a good O-line coach or decent, but to elevate him like they did. At the sacrifice of their offense. I mean, they've won guys. They've won 9 or 10 games every year, and they've had incredible defense. They've had to have those good defenses. Think if they had any quarterback play at all, or think about if they had any run game or any explosiveness on offense. They've had athletes there. They've had receivers. They've had how many NFL tight ends they put in there? They put in the league every year.
At least one.
At least one. At least every draft, there's a first, second round dude from Iowa catching passes at tight end, and yet they're winning 9-6. I think that was last year's score at Illinois.
All I'm saying is I think I see the writing on the wall, and I think with the Big Ten changing, new administration at Iowa, new athletic director.
No, it makes sense to exit stage left, but he's going to want one heck of a piggy bank to ride off into that sunset again with him.
I guess we'll find out.
Vogues,
I'm with you, Elijah. It's setting up to be a pretty good mic drop if they win the West in this year in particular for Kirk. And if that doesn't happen, I think what we're seeing here is offensive analyst Brian Ferentz.
Vogues, I know we'll get a score prediction from you Saturday with the weekend edition, but I got to ask you, who would you start at quarterback for Nebraska? See, Matt Rhule's on line 2. He's like, Vogues, love your stuff. Lovecounterread.com. Who are you going with?
Yeah, I spent a good section on that in today's preview. You can check that out at counterread.com if you're interested. I think Sims is where I would go. The turnover numbers are so.
Are you serious?
Yes, I think are so off, like outside the norm, like off the charts, crazy. Yeah, he's turnover prone. He was his whole career. That like just from kind of a numbers perspective, I think if you had more time, like you would kind of naturally progress to at least his career average. There's
a lot of no's, like movie moment screams.
It's a tough argument to make. I don't have enough time to try and make it here. Go to Counter Read and check that out. It is a paid subscriber post, but you can get a 7-day free trial. I think there's an argument to be made. And yes, I also get the Chubba Purdy one. It's almost like a total unknown, but maybe the unknown is better than the known that we've seen if you go the other way.
The stream chat's about to revolt.
Oh, it is. It's a C. What was the movie or the episode in Game of Thrones? Battle of the Bastards, where there was Jon Snow.
I was going to say, they're about to go red wedding on Vogel.
Well, I'm looking at it as Vogel standing, and there's an entire army racing at him, and it's just Jon Snow and his sword, and here comes everybody, all their horses. Vogues, how can folks find you and check out what you're doing? How can folks subscribe to you and Aaron Sorensen?
Yep, you just head to counterread.com. We've got two subscriber-only newsletters a week if you're interested in that. But if you're not ready to go that route yet, we do have plenty of free stuff there. I mentioned anybody who signs up, even as a paid subscriber, gets a 7-day free trial to start with. So there's a chance to check it out. You can read why I would probably go with Sims. I'm not no doubter, but that's the pick I'd make. The number whoever plays quarterback has to hit here, and this is laid out in that post, is pretty low. It's pretty meager expectations, but it does involve only one interception. So that's been the tough part.
What was the Darryl Royal quote you had, Vogues? Or Elijah?
Only 3 things can happen when you throw the football, and 2 of them are bad.
One pass attempt. All right, let's do the old Barry Switzer honor and ode. Vogues, you take care. We'll talk Saturday. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Here he is. Look at Vogues. Off the top rope. I'd go with Sims.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
I
respect the hell out of Brandon, his opinion.
He's the only guy in America
with enough balls to say
yes, in this state that says, yeah, give me some Sims. Hey, I hope we see Sims if you're a Nebraska fan, and I hope he kills it.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
We will get to all your stream comments. Keep them coming. Keep watching the show, Hail Varsity YouTube, and wherever you hear us on the Hail Varsity Radio Network. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Reminder about your friends at Dyer Law. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on the Dyer Law team to provide you with the helping hand you need, no matter what you're dealing with. Call Dyer today and the Dyer Law team at 402-393-7529, 402-393-7529, or visit Dyer.law to chat with a trusted professional about your personal injury claim. That's Dyer.law. The folks in the stream have revolted about Vogues' suggestion that maybe Sims is the way to go at quarterback, and they are to the point where they're commenting on our friend Bobby, who's here shadowing. Bobby is a wonderful senior at Lincoln East in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they are placing bets every time Bobby touches his nose. Like, I bet you he picks it. It's like we're watching Caddyshack. Bobby's like, look, dude, I've got allergies. They asked who's the homeless guy next to Schmidt.
Well, he is wearing a Packers hoodie. So.
Ooh. Wow.
Can we get him on mic here for a second?
Yeah.
I have a question to ask Bobby.
Bobby's got a little Jim Morrison hairdo going. It's all good.
He's got the TikTok hair,
and he's got his Green Bay military salute. Big NFL guy. Bobby, you having fun? Do you want to fire back at some of the stream chatters?
Probably not, because I don't know who any of these people are.
Sure,
so
that's
I don't
fine.
have anything to say about it, because I'm not a bad person.
No, you're good.
No,
well
you're
done.
Not.
Hey, good for you coming out. Thanks for asking.
Making
to
his
check things out.
radio debut.
And
Bobby, I'm going to put you on the spot here. My brother's a teacher at Lincoln East. Ben Herbel, Mr. Herbel is how you'd know him.
Mr. Ben.
Who's the cooler brother? Answer carefully.
I'm going to go with you, just because,
he can turn you on.
If I didn't, you'd probably kick me out, so I got to go with you.
I'd jump through the glass. That's a win, though. That's a win.
You're gonna play that for your brother a little bit later tonight over beer and tacos.
I'm going to get that clipped up for family Thanksgiving. Sit the whole family down and just prove it.
Yeah, you're gonna have a picture of you and him, and it's gonna be like one of those highlights you could order back in the day where it's a cut out of your favorite player and then it's the radio call. It works well. Good for Bobby to rise above the goons. Vic, good to hear from you. We love seeing Vic and hearing from Vic. Crew checks in and says, go Vikings. You had Montana Husker say, grow the hair out while you still can, my man. That's some of us are follically challenged. Are we going to Wisconsin for the roadie? Should we open that up? Should we take a stream vote to go?
That sounds like a terrible. Whose car are we taking?
We'll fly.
Oh, now here's an idea.
We'll fly.
No. Maybe, we'll probably have to save this for next season. Schmidt and Elijah hitchhike to a Husker game.
No.
Could work.
Absolutely not.
Could be fun. Could be a good story.
We could be dead, dismembered, and be fish food.
Schmidt and Elijah hitchhike to L.A. Schmidt and Elijah ride the trains to L.A. We go hop on the trains.
The
illegally.
Amtrak. My grandparents took a train to L.A.
I'm not saying pay for a ticket. I'm saying go find one of those cargo trains and go hop on.
Okay.
Go hobo it out.
Sure. We will title this segment the Hobo segment. Gary Barnett going to be with us to kick off hour 2 next on Hail Varsity.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you at Hail Varsity Radio, Hour 2. Gary Barnett with us as we get deeper into November. Black Friday looms. We say hi to Coach Barnett. Coach, how's it going?
I've been well, just trying to get a win. It was funny, Chris. Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas all had walk-off losses to field goals. And there were 6 in the NFL, which is the most ever in the league on one weekend. So there had to be something in the water. And, I just know of our 3. There's probably another dozen out there in the college football world. So it was just one of those things last week.
It was a walk-off weekend, for sure. And Nebraska fans, our post-game folks are still irate about the interception. And I'm sure you followed, but Nebraska used all 3 quarterbacks threw interceptions. And I'm interested on your take as a coach and play caller have you ever been afraid to throw the football?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no question. You can be afraid to throw the football. And, you can't. You just say, look, let's try to run this thing, and if we're going to throw it, it's going to be a 5-yard hitch route or a 5-yard out route or a swing pass. But, we're not going to take any more chances. We can't put our defense in this position. So you get that way. It's sort of like my golf swing sometimes. I get to where I don't know how to take it back on the drive. So I just say, well, let's just ticket out there. But yeah, it happens. You guys have 5 turnovers, man. That's a lot. That's you can't win any games doing that. And frankly, I think a lot of your issues and our issues aren't going to be resolved till next year or spring.
Well, and Coach Satterfield's taken some arrows, and Rhule said it's on me. I'm the guy. Leave it at that. There was a little bit of a spark by Sims until the turnovers happened. I mean, just some inexplicable decision making, and that's kind of been how it's been for him this year. And then, Coach, I'm excited to see Chubba Purdy if he is the guy. And I don't expect Rhule to name a guy because Chubba's dealing with a growing issue. Sims is the only healthy guy, but there's a lot of fear in where he's at from a mental state just because of how things have gone. Do you know much about Purdy? I know he's had minimal times, but he's at one time a pretty highly touted dual-threat guy. The kid looked good and did a great job almost making a fairy tale come true.
Well, you're right. He was a pretty highly touted guy coming out. He certainly has the genes, with his brother playing so well. But no, I don't. He's never been a consistent starter, and I think that's just because of his own inconsistencies. If you don't start a kid and play him, it's because you don't trust him in practice. And my guess is that's what's happened with him.
How is that two-way street about trust? I mean, what do you need to see, Coach, from a kid? Does it need to be a week's worth of practice, a good off season? Because, turnovers are going to happen. Rhule touched on intentionality. You got to be intentional with what you're doing with the football. And a lot of times Nebraska quarterbacks have just chucked it up. They've not had much live fire in games, aside from Sims. But the 2 other kids haven't had much development, let alone starts. So how does that trust timeline work for you?
Well, it's just your decisions in practice. That's the only thing you can gauge. Decisions in practice, and when you do play, decisions there. And, you get to where you're playing defensively, which I think probably is happening in Nebraska. You just don't want to make a mistake. You're not playing to make plays. You're playing not to make a mistake. And it's dangerous, it's safe, but it's, probably doesn't result in very many wins. And it's just something that happens because you just don't have enough trust. The player hasn't shown enough in practice that says, okay, we can make some plays this week. So you end up playing defensively.
Gary Barnett's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. What do you think of Nebraska-Wisconsin? The line dropped a lot from 7 to about 4.5. Wisconsin's injured. But, Coach, Wisconsin fans and even that locker room, in a year one flip, it's not gone as planned. They were kind of a co-favorite in the West, and the air raid is not taken well in Madtown. I think Fickell's a really talented coach, but they're having a really tough year one.
They are. Defensively, they've been really good. People have scored 13, 20, 14, 9, and 7 against them. And so, that's a pretty good defense when that kind of stuff's happening. And so it's still going to be a tough game to move the ball in. It's going to be another game maybe like Maryland, and, it's like playing Iowa a little bit, I think. So, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, pretty much Northwestern, they're all pretty much the same.
It is. Can you not hand it to the other team's offense on a short field, and can you just do enough to help your defense? Gary Barnett's with us, and Coach, I'm interested in your reaction to the coaching carousel as that starts spinning here. And Jimbo is out at A&M, and he's got a guaranteed walk-away money. And what do you think of Jimbo's ouster, and what do you think of that A&M job? Who would fit?
Well, I feel bad for Jimbo because he's going to have to live month to month because they're going to spread that money over 8 years. And so I just don't know how he's going to make it. But I think, the name I keep hearing that I really do like is Jeff Traylor at UTSA. With A&M going back into with Texas coming into the SEC, all of a sudden now it's back to a big in-state battle for Texas kids between A&M and Texas. And I think that Jeff Traylor, being a high school coach, is really well liked in the state of Texas, that this could be a Texas hire. And that would surprise everybody, I think. But I do think that that's a real possibility. After that, I'm not sure who fits down. I think it's a great job. I really have thought many times that maybe it's the best job in the country. And so it's, you got to find the right guy for sure. I think Deion's complicated things because when you're looking to hire a coach and you see what he did in 1 year, now most of that is turnaround and ticket sales and things like that, which A&M doesn't need that. Mm-hmm. They need a football coach is what they need.
Well, Deion was asked about it, and is Prime a guy that would leave after year one in Boulder?
No.
I mean, no? Okay.
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. Well, and with Jimbo, why didn't it work? I mean, why did it go sour at Florida State, and why did it not work at A&M?
Well, I think just the whole Florida State thing gave you an indication of where this was going with Jimbo. And, you just lose your mojo sometimes. And I would have thought that everybody thought that was a pretty good fit. But Jimbo was struggling leaving Florida State. And, it just continued. And whether it's staff, and I don't really know because I'm not close enough to it, but sometimes it could be staff. Sometimes it could be just, you're a guy that guys don't buy into. Mm-hmm. And when you don't get buy-in, then you don't have much of a chance. So, I know they spent a lot of money. They had a locker room issue with all the guys making all the money and not producing. And, mm-hmm. I think it was just a perfect storm for Jimbo that it didn't work out.
Urban, could you hear that name down at A&M, or would that be a disaster?
Oh, I don't know. I of course, his name gets thrown around with everything, but who knows? I don't know how to project that one with Urban. I would think he's a little toxic still, but that doesn't make much difference anymore.
Dabo, you think he's ready to leave Clemson?
He might not feel appreciated there by the fan base, but Dabo's a darn good coach, and I think he's going to be successful anywhere he goes. So I think that's always a possibility, I suppose.
Let's talk about UCLA, because On3 reported this week, and some other national columnists said that UCLA is going to move on from Chip Kelly. And is that UCLA job still a wow get, or is it kind of off to the side because of just the price of living out there in the West Coast?
Well, I know one thing. First of all, this isn't my favorite topic, Chris, but is coaches changes and who should take whose job. But, Colorado moved from the Big 12 to the Pac-10 or Pac-12 with a new coach, and it was a disaster. And I would tell UCLA that making this move with a new coach to the Big 10, it just complicates the whole thing.
Sure.
And I think Chip's done a good job. It's a great head coach's job and a really tough assistant coach's job because you have to live more than an hour away from work. And just the logistics of your staff are really complicated there. UCLA is probably tougher academically than any place in the Pac-12 except Stanford. I think that's a challenge that a lot of people don't understand. But you're surrounded by great players. You're surrounded by numbers of people who want to go to school there. So it should be a great place to recruit. But they are a little bit hamstrung by academics there. And in that way, they fit into the Big Ten, of course. But it's never easy making a move from one conference to the other and changing coaches at the same time.
Gary Barnett with us. Do you like the momentum Bama has, not just for winning the SEC West, but do you think I know they have one loss, but if they don't get it done in the SEC title game, could they have a strong argument for a playoff spot this year?
Yeah, I think so. Of course, it's going to depend on what everybody else does, but Jason Milroe, he just needed to play. Mm-hmm. And now he wasn't a liability. Now he's a tremendous asset to that team. And, this may be one of Nick's best coaching jobs. And, I think they've got I don't think they would beat Texas. I mean, I don't think Texas would beat them in another game. Mm-hmm. But, they're going to, if they beat Georgia, you're darn right. They've got a real stern statement for going in.
Coach, we'll hit some rapid fire before we let you get out of Dodge. And we look at some of the ball games here. I'm going to go to Arizona and Utah, Pac-12. Arizona's just been dynamite. I know I rave about them each week, but I really like what they're doing. Utah had a tough one, but, man, they played well. They played better offensively than a lot of us thought they would against Washington. Does Utah bounce back? What do you think of this matchup?
Arizona's favored by a point at home. I think Utah wins this game. Utah's, if we'd had any kind of defense, Arizona wouldn't have scored. But Utah does have that kind of defense, and so I think there's a real chance Utah wins this game.
How about Georgia at Tennessee? Tennessee's not been last year, but this is dangerous for Georgia. Do you agree?
No. I don't think anything's dangerous for Georgia except maybe Alabama at this point in time.
Okay. Illinois, Iowa.
What are you trying to do, the under here? What's going on?
Yes, I wanted to score from you because it's -3. That's not the over-under. It's a -3.
Well, I don't know what the over-under is, but it doesn't need to be more than 22. So, Iowa wins. Nobody can move the ball on them, and you press, you struggle trying to find a way to move the ball on them, and you make a mistake, and they find a way to score. So, no, I'm going to stay with Iowa on this one.
On to Kansas. Kansas State, Kansas, the battle for the Sunflower State. K-State's -7.5. KU just had a tough one against Texas Tech. That kind of surprised me last week.
Well, KU's playing with their third-string quarterback, and they've been playing with their second-string quarterback all year. He's done a great job. He got hurt. And so they're down to their third. And I think Kansas State right now is just too good for Kansas. I like Kansas. I like what Lance Leipold's done. Mm-hmm. I like the way he's built his team. But, you can't win with your third-string quarterback unless he's a 5-star recruit that you're trying to redshirt.
Washington, Oregon State. Is this the weekend for the Huskies?
I don't know. Oregon State's favored in this game. I was shocked to see that. I don't think so. I think Washington still wins the game.
Okay. How about Texas at Iowa State?
Iowa State can't move the ball, and they can play defense, but they can't move the ball. And Texas wins. And
Nebraska is underdogged by 4.5. You going Badgers or Huskers?
Oh, what do you want me to say there, Chris?
No, I want your take. You tell me what you believe.
I don't. You guys can't move the ball, and Wisconsin's a good defense. You turn it over, so you got to go with Wisconsin in this game, I think.
No, last 2 weeks I picked against Nebraska. You're not going to tick me off. Yeah. You're fine. Gary Barnett is with us. Coach, enjoy the trip to the Palouse, and we'll talk next week. Thanks for the time.
All right, Chris. Sounds good. Thanks. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Good stuff from Gary Barnett. He thinks a little too much Wisconsin and Nebraska can't move the ball. We will get to all your stream comments. We'll take some phone calls. Danny Burke is going to join us. Burke's Best Bets at 5:40. Open phones next segment. We will discuss this potential revisited roadie to Wisconsin on Saturday.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Get to some emails here. More of your stream comments. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel at Hail Varsity Radio on a Thursday. Cornhead Lager helping power this show. We're on the road tomorrow. Come see us in La Vista as we're at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill live 4 to 6 tomorrow. So be out for that. There's plenty of food and drink specials going on at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill in La Vista, kind of nestled between the Embassy Suites and Cabela's, so just right off the interstate. Check a pizza out if you haven't had a chance to try the marvelous pizza. The Bang Bang sauce, the wings are incredible. The chili gets a thumbs up from our dear friend Jabba Chamberlain, so come hungry. And hang out as we get you ready for Nebraska-Wisconsin. 489-1240, 489-1240. Couple of things from Gary Barnett. Big thanks to Coach. Vic is saying Barney for OC, Barney for OC as offensive coordinator. Brian asked the question, Elijah, what is our record this season when we hit the road for a Husker game?
This season?
This season, we are 0-for.
Yeah.
We're 0-3.
Well, if you go back to last season.
The last win I had was last win I covered on the road was Nebraska-Iowa.
You did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Call it your win. If you weren't there, they probably would have lost, right?
No. I quite honestly, they found Trey for about 3 passes, and you had Nebraska do enough defensively. And then gave everyone wearing red a heart attack in that fourth quarter with, guess what, a fumble. Before that, it was Notre Dame. Before that, it was Notre Dame 2000, in the year 2000.
I know for a fact I'm 0-for on road games. I'm trying to figure out if it's 0-for-6 or 0-for-7.
Yeah, I'm awful. So, but we've had all sorts of suggestions here.
Well, Schmidt, when you look at it the other way, we're due. We're due.
You and I, it's straight up Dumb and Dumber. I mean, it is. We need the shaggin' wagon and to get up there and go for it. Cutter said this, and it was hilarious. Take Bobby's car. Bobby is sitting behind me in studio here. He's not a homeless person we brought in out of the cold. He is a high school student from Lincoln East. We appreciate him wanting to shadow and jumping into the world of sports media and content. Brandon's going. So we got to ask Brandon this. What time are you leaving? And where do we stop if we got to knock out 4 to 6 tomorrow on the way? We should just fly up Saturday morning, do the weekend edition 4 to 6 from Madison, do the post game from Madison. The problem is I don't have any credentials in. I haven't requested any.
We don't need them.
I'm not going to freeze out there.
Oh, Mr. High and Mighty.
No, cue Todd and the email about what kind of a soft wuss I am. Let me check the email, chris@halevarsity.com. It's going to be 38, dude. Okay. Haven't done that for a long time.
Layers, Schmitty.
I know. Todd does email. This was during the Barnett segment. Pretty chubby, has a groin injury. Almost predictable, and turnovers do happen, but you shouldn't expect them every other snap. This goes back to something Barney was saying. Sometimes a guy's just got to play. Do you have any feeling about that when it comes to Nebraska's quarterback options? Not necessarily Sims, but more so Chubba Purdy. Sometimes a guy just has to play. You also have the reality of what's the guy done in practice? How much has Chubba practiced this year because of that sports hernia / groin issue? That's the thing to me. And how much has Chubba been able to practice at Nebraska? How much was Chubba able to practice at Florida State? Because I think that's a real discussion point. I think he was probably dinged a little bit, shoulder, at Florida State. They kept on recruiting. Time to transfer, right? Then you get to Nebraska. What kept Chubba from seeing the field last year? Well, he had that foot issue. I mean, didn't he have some sort of, and I'm not trying to go HIPAA violation here, didn't he have some sort of stress fracture of the shoes or something? Right? I mean, the shoes were too tight on his feet and it jacked with his feet. And now what do you have here? He had a groin injury, and the guy just hasn't had the game reps, or who knows if he's had the practice reps. So there is that. Now, how can you manage him if he is the guy? With Harburg, I'm not ready to shut the door on it. He's come in and been serviceable, and he's got a talent for running the ball. That said, the more you work with a guy, the more he sees in game, the more he sees in practice, the better he can get. I do believe guys can always get better. And the problem is you're not doing this during the off season. This isn't a 10 a.m. Saturday scrimmage. You're facing live bullets, and there are repercussions for bad decisions and turnovers.
And that's the problem, I think, with playing Harburg on Saturdays. If he's anything less than 100%, he's not any sort of benefit to you offensively.
And he's been 100%, and he's still struggled a little bit when defenses have kind of adapted to take away his strengths.
And the strength is running the football. Yeah. So if a defense has adapted to his strengths, if Matt Rhule gets up there and says, you know what, he could play, Wisconsin's probably going to be ready for that. Mm-hmm. He's not 100% running the football. Why do you have him out there throwing the football? Because I do legitimately believe, from what I've seen from Sims and Harburg, despite the turnovers, they have better arm talent than Heinrich Harburg.
Sure.
They can make the throws better. I think Sims at times has done a better job at reading defenses. At times he's looked a hell of a lot worse, but he hasn't necessarily missed open crossers.
He came in and made some nice throws.
He did.
CK Cash, 26, checks in. I'm not happy about it, but I think Sims is the best option. We just have to teach him not to do anything extra. Most of his issues are when he tries to do too much. And you know what, CK Cash, you're not wrong. You just don't know if he will acquiesce. You just don't know if he'll just kind of take what's there versus trying to do too much. Steven checks in. Steven, thanks for listening. I'm sure you can get hooked up with BNSF, and you get on a car and do the old sliding track thing.
Yeah, riding the rails would be fun.
Yeah, in the 1930s.
I have looked into this, Schmidt, and if we are
is there a train?
No, we'll figure out how we get there. Tickets are $3. Listed online. Who needs a press pass when seats are $3, Schmitty?
Well, I think you can drink it in Madison.
At the game, yeah.
I think that's part of it. Who's on the line?
We go to Pete in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Pete, thanks for listening, man. Go for it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I just wanted to comment. I know it's a little past this. We want to look forward, but it's regarding the Purdy pass interception. Mm-hmm. And I'm reminded that when we were in an overtime game and Frost had Martinez as the quarterback and he ran 3 straight times, and I think third down was like 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, and we ran it, didn't get it, and I think we missed the field goal and lost the game. But he was questioned. There was a lot of criticism. Why didn't you pass? Why didn't you pass? And Frost said, I was afraid of the interception. Mm-hmm. So here we are with Purdy, kind of the exact opposite criticism. He threw in a passing situation. So I guess probably we fans kind of grouse regardless of what happens.
You just want the result to be right if you're a Nebraska fan, which means get the first down if you call a run, throw it to the Nebraska guy if you call a pass, and end up with more points than the other team. And yeah, sometimes you can't win. It's out of your hands other than what you prepared the guys for. And, you know, I'm looking at the reality of pressing, right? Wisconsin and some of the guys on offense have been going through that. You've seen that with Nebraska for a lot of years during the different regimes. I wonder right now if you just, as a coordinator, if you're Satterfield, if you're not pressing, or if you're even maybe overthinking with, all right, I got to stay 2 steps ahead of this defensive coordinator here. This will get him. This will surprise him, versus having confidence in what your team does well. And that's the other part of this. If I'm trading shoes with Sat, I don't know what my team does well on offense. I know they run the football, or they're supposed to be able to run the football, but when push comes to shove, can Nebraska still get the yards they need when it's 4th and short or 3rd and short? Can the quarterback make the right decision? I've taught him. We've trained it. We've ran the play. But when push comes to shove, is on 4th and 2, my quarterback going to run a quarterback counter and then try and outrun the defense by himself, go John Wayne, or is he going to follow what was designed with the play? Is my quarterback going to pull it on 1st down and think it's an RPO because he's not clear out what the play is because he's not had the reps. And thankfully, it's an incomplete pass for Nebraska, but it's now 2nd and long. So there's all those scenarios, and you just want to end up being right, and you want to be right in the moment.
Well, it might be a case study of there being no right answers at the quarterback spot, at least in 2023.
They're just no, and you better have more options in 2024, current and future, and you better be better at evaluating what's out there. And what you have. This staff.
One more comment on your job shadow, Bobby. I think it's great that you guys allow that, and I would tell Bobby he sure picked a good show to be on. It's a good show, and it's good for you to let those high school kids see it from the inside.
Pete, appreciate you, man.
Pretty exciting.
Hey, have fun in Rocky Top, all right? Thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Good to hear from Pete.
See, it's good to have.
There we go.
It's good to have Bobby in here until Bobby takes our job in 3 years.
Well, that happens. 489-1240. More phone calls we'll get to. Brennan, when we're talking about what the quarterback does well or what the team does well on offense, Brennan, our friend in the Black Hills, is like, well, they turned the ball over well. Yeah, I think so. Red Wine says I'd start Purdy, have Heinrich ready, stay away from Sims. Who's 4th string? We'll hear. Can we sneak that in or no? Let's take the phone call. We'll sneak in all 4 quarterbacks that are traveling. Who's on the phone?
We have Deuce.
Deuce, how are we? Where are we drinking Saturday?
We're good, but I got to be honest. We have got to quit blaming all of the blame on the players for what happened in that last drive. You just drove the ball 90 yards throwing the pass one time. So let's not act like we weren't running the ball. If you don't run it 3 times, shame on you. And as far as blaming Satterfield, the coach has a headset on, the head coach. All he has to say is run the damn ball.
Love it, Deuce. Thanks for the phone call.
You ain't wrong.
Dude, that's a lot of head nodding going on there. All right, we'll hear from Danny Burke on the way.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Danny Burke is with us. Burke's Best Bets at Danny Burke 5 on Twitter. It's where you find him. And be sure to check Danny and his site out. Good stuff if you want some NFL hits and, of course, college football. Pride of Chicago is Burke'sBeat.com. Long time with VSiN, DraftKings, and, of course, he was with us here in Lincoln. Danny, are you headed to Mantown on Saturday?
I am not. You know, I actually went there for the first time. I think it was last spring. My girlfriend and I made a trip out there, and good college town, but haven't gone there for a game day. So that's something I'm going to need to cross off the old bucket list, Big Ten college football-wise.
Danny, tickets, I just looked it up. You can find them for as low as $3.
Maybe they'll start paying people to go there instead, and maybe that's when they'll get me incentivized to make the trek down and, you know, sit through the colder weather to watch this lower-scoring game.
Yeah, it's problematic with the offense here, but let's dive in. The line dropped from 7 to 4.5, 3.5 in some spots. What do you think of the totals? What do you think of the line?
Yeah, it has been some weird movement. Like you said, Schmitty, we saw this one open at 7, got down to as low as 5. Now it's trending back up, and I see 6 at some sports books in favor of the Badgers. Total open about 39.5. Now we see that at 37. My first thought would have been to bet this thing under, as I'm sure was many people's thoughts. I mean, again, as you alluded to and have talked about ad nauseum on the show, I'm sure Nebraska with the quarterback issues raises a big red flag for this offense. And you can kind of see, too, the difference, how this team plays home versus road. I mean, when you have a struggling offense that needs the benefit of every little edge, say penalties, for example, certainly you're going to get the benefit of the doubt more so at Memorial Stadium than anywhere else throughout the Big Ten. So it's those little things that can help boost this offense along with the crowd when necessary. And that's why you're probably not expecting anything explosive out of this Nebraska offense in general, especially against the Wisconsin defense that, yes, got embarrassed last week. It hasn't been as great as we've known before, but this is probably a good get-right spot for him. So even though it's down to 37, I still lean toward the under, but because you have missed it by 2.5 points, I may just stay away unless we get some movement toward the over closer to kickoff. As for the spread here, do I think Nebraska wins? Probably not. But if we're assuming this is going to be a lower-scoring game, the chances that a Wisconsin team right now can cover 6 points, it doesn't really correlate usually when you have such a low total. So I think the correlation for me would be under and taking the points with Nebraska if you're getting 6 or better. I just don't really see how you can justify laying 6 points with this Badgers team at this point in the year.
Danny, we all know the lock of the weekend in college football is betting the Iowa under, but is there anything else you like in the world of college football on Saturday?
You know, surprisingly, I haven't seen too many games that I favor right now. I'm still teetering around, and I'll probably end up posting 1 or 2 tomorrow. But, I was on Mizzou last week. That was a nice win. I'm kind of tempted to go against them with Florida coming to Mizzou this week. Maybe Mizzou feeling a little bit fat and happy after getting a solid dub against Tennessee this past weekend. And Florida still has some offensive pieces, but, trusting Graham Mertz and some of those other guys, it's never a fun venture. So that may end up keeping me off of it. But that was one that had kind of crossed my mind a little bit. Let's see, what else? Another game was, USC and UCLA. You want to find a spot to back USC here, but again, it's just so hard with how poor their defense is. But with everything going on with UCLA, it'll be interesting to see how they respond. Oklahoma and BYU is probably another one that I may find myself on as well. I was gravitating toward the over in this game, but we do see some love coming into the under. So, again, may wait to see how far this thing drops down. And then finally, the other game that just going to wait to see what happens and what other people are thinking too. But this Arizona-Utah game is really going to be interesting. And, look, Arizona obviously has a better offense, a better quarterback. They looked shaky last week, and Utah's still fighting. And Whittingham does have the coaching advantage in this one. I'm a little tempted to go with the Utes on the road here. Now we see this one at a pick 'em, so it looks like they could be getting some late attention, and I may be giving them some attention, too, the closer we get to kickoff.
Danny, let's go to the NFL. Danny Burke with us, and Burke's Best Bets. Can find him on Twitter at DannyBurke5. That's where you go, burksbeat.com. I love the Monday night game, Eagles-Chiefs. Anything else you like, or is there something juicy there you think is either fishy or too good to pass up?
Yeah, I'll start with tonight. I do have a prop in tonight's Thursday night football game. I'm looking at Gus Edwards' anytime touchdown score, about plus 105 is a common number out there. Look, Cincinnati's banged up all over the place, but more importantly, where they really struggle is against the run. They're 29th in DVOA run defense, 28th in defensive EPA per play against the run. They allow 5 yards per carry, which is second most in the National Football League. Gus Edwards has 7 straight rushing touchdowns the past 7 games. The only other time he's gotten a rushing touchdown this season was in Week 2 against none other than his upcoming opponent, the Cincinnati Bengals. He's getting a lot of red zone attempts, and I think the same will persist tonight. They really struggled with the Ravens against the run against Cleveland this past weekend, so I think they're going to want to emphasize that and take some of the strain off of Lamar, especially in a division game on a short week. So I'm playing Gus Edwards anytime touchdown score. I also favor Baltimore. Don't like it over the key number of 3 in a division game, so I'll wait to see if I get a better in-game number. Otherwise, a couple other spots I'm actually writing up about right now. I'm looking at this Rams and Seahawks game, and I actually do like the Rams in this spot after the bye week, getting Stafford back a little bit healthier. Seahawks aren't looking too sharp, especially defensively. So I don't mind taking the Rams, but I think what I'll end up on here, guys, is going to be the total over 46. Both have bad defenses. Just told you the Rams' offense is getting better, and I trust Geno Smith and company to do enough to produce points to help this total get over. And then, man, Elijah, I may end up on the Denver Broncos. I might have to unless you talk me out of it. Otherwise, though, I think I'm looking at under 43 for the Broncos against the Vikings. But I'm curious your thoughts on that one, Elijah.
Well, Danny, you faded the Broncos last week. I hope you learned your lesson.
I know, man.
I think they're going to be fine. It's going to be a close ball game. I don't hate the unders, but I like the Broncos outright in this one.
I like Denver as well. Danny, I got to ask you, any super dog that you're leading on here. You got -9, I should say +9 Giants, +11.5 Tampa, +13.5 Raiders. I mean, those are some monster lines.
Yeah, I can't justify taking the Raiders. A lot of the sharp money is coming on the Dolphins. Think about this. I mean, they're coming off their bye week. Their defense, they're all saying they're finally getting Fangio's system a little bit, and the Raiders are feeling, we're talking about fat and happy. I mean, this team has a new interim coach, just won 2 home games. They're smoking cigars. They're going to get smacked realistically by Miami, so I wouldn't trust the Raiders there. Some people actually like Carolina. I can't justify getting there, but a lot of people actually kind of like them. I liked the Bears when they were at over 10.5, but now they're down to 7.5. Teasing down Detroit's the more appealing option now instead of taking the points with Chicago. But Fields back in the mix, Khalil Herbert back. Defense is getting better and healthier in a division game. I think the Bears can keep this one relatively close.
Daddy, can't wait for it. Daddy Burke, Burke's Best Bets, and find Daddy's work, burksbeat.com. Danny, have a good weekend. We'll pick you on the way up to Madison.
Absolutely. Sounds good, fellas. Take care.
There he is. Some emails, some final thoughts. Maybe the vaunted steak and a beer bet?
Oh, say less.
Okay, we'll get there as we wind down to Thursday.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So our friend Todd, the emailer, I said, well, are you going to go if we go? Road trip, take a listener with. And he's like, I don't know if you can get the warden to let me out.
Oh, Raiders fan.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
We have so
Saturday morning,
today.
airfare Omaha to Madison. Leave at 7:30. Our show starts at 4 Saturday afternoon. Get in by 11 to Madtown. We can call Barry. And Alvarez could probably get us hooked up at a bar. Best case. Worst case, we're in the stadium for pre- and post-game. $384 round trip.
Could work.
What we need to do is head down to the old sports book.
Make a parlay on Thursday Night Football.
We need an anytime touchdown. We need a totals. And we need a cover. Either take Cincy or go Baltimore. Put $1,500 down. Boom, the trip's paid for. Or we'll really up it. We got to double down on Nebraska-Wisconsin Saturday night if we don't win tonight.
We'll go full uncut gems. Kevin Garnett to win the opening tip.
Right. I mean, what was that, like a 38
leg
parlay, and then he gets killed in the end. Sorry if you didn't see it.
Spoilers.
That movie's been out 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID?
It was 2019.
Okay.
Long enough that if you haven't seen it
if you haven't
by
seen
now,
that's your fault
you
now.
deserve it.
Yeah, forgive me.
But you did inspire me with a good idea, and Todd as well. How fun would it be if every single year we raffle off a road trip with Schmidt and Elijah to an away game?
I don't know how much fun that'd be for everybody else.
Somebody out there, I'm sure, would enjoy it.
So Brandon's like, I need a tailgate location Saturday before the game. That is Brandon. Well,
I got from my experience in Madison.
Doesn't your boy Crew or your Chicago fellas know a spot in Madison?
Well, from my experience going, there's like bars within walking distance of the stadium, like right there. I got to look up Camp Randall and see if I can figure out what the bar was called. There's one right there. It's right across the street from a gas station where you can also buy booze, and I'm pretty sure there's open container as well.
Well, I'm checking with our friend Linda in Madison, and we're doing this on air. I will get a location, Brandon, and we'll get it figured out. We'll get as far as for a bar from you. I'm still 50-50 on whether we go or not, because it's going to be about 70 here on Saturday. My audible is to throw some short ribs on the smoker and do that. See, Vic was in Dublin with us, and he had a great time at the Mary Cobbler a couple years ago. We got to do that next year.
Okay, so I'm looking here at Apple Map. There is bars within walking distance of the stadium.
Sure.
And that's what all the Wisconsin fans
Now the
are
thing
doing.
is can we get a seat there? I gotta check with our friend Linda, Badger Linda, and Badger Barry, and see if they can't get us a spot. and then we just go? Do we take a wonderful listener up on being the transportation?
The lucky listener.
We got to do the show tomorrow night at the Hurrdat Club. So Saturday's when we got to go.
We could just stay in Omaha. I got the tent in my car. Sleeping bag?
No, I'm not camping with you. There's a joke about camping. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow at 4. See you at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill.